I lay curled up on the second-hand love seat in my tiny apartment in Portland's Northwest District, one hand wrapped around a chipped mug of chamomile tea, the other shielding my eyes from the flickering screen on the coffee table. My phone lit up like a distress beacon. Calls from Dad, Mom, even Julian, my older brother. Same 3 names, over and over, like the universe was trying to force me into a corner with guilt. It had been 7 months since I walked away from that house. No fight, no shouting, not even a sarcastic goodbye. I quietly folded a week's worth of clothes into my suitcase, grabbed my laptop, and slipped my budgeting planner into my backpack. I left, just as the sky turned that purple-gray shade that always came before rain in Oregon. No one followed. No one even noticed. They never thought I'd really leave, because I was Nina, the dependable one, the daughter who paid off the overdue rent without complaint, the sister who covered Julian's car repair so he could focus on his music. For nearly 12 years I had been the financial spine of that household, the invisible glue holding together bad decisions, missed deadlines, and broken promises. I used to think that was love, that stepping up meant I mattered. But in this cramped studio apartment, just me, my peace, and the hum of the fridge, I saw it clearly. I was sustaining a structure built on neglect. I was the quiet sacrifice. The phone buzzed again. I didn't need to check. It would be Mom, her voice trembling with false concern. How could you abandon us like this? Followed by the inevitable guilt trip. If you still love us, you'll call. I didn't move. I just let my head fall back and closed my eyes. The silence felt like oxygen. My name is Nina Carter. I'm 30 years old, a CPA who graduated top of my class from Oregon State. I spent years believing if I just did enough, worked late, gave more, stayed quiet, I'd be seen. But I learned something else. When you're the one holding everything up, the moment you step away, they don't thank you, they just panic, and that tells you everything you need to know. No one asked why I wasn't dressed for work that morning. Not a single "where are you going" crossed anyone's lips. And now, 7 months later, after nothing but silence, they suddenly can't stop calling. Like I'm the power cord they yanked out and now can't figure out how to plug back in. I glanced at the phone again, still buzzing. I didn't silence it. I didn't block them. I just let it vibrate. Each ring felt like a small reminder that I'd finally severed the cord they used to tug on whenever life got inconvenient. And for the first time in my life, freedom didn't look like fireworks. It felt like a quiet Tuesday afternoon where the only sound was the gentle hum of my coffee maker and the light tapping of rain against the window. I started working at 15, not because I wanted pocket money, but because I already knew, deep down, that if I didn't figure it out for myself, no one else was going to. While classmates carpooled to football practice or piano recitals, I rode my rusted bike down to the grocery store and stocked shelves until closing. I saved every penny. My first purchase, a refurbished laptop. My second, accounting software. I wasn't dreaming of parties. I was dreaming of escape. No one asked if I was tired. No one noticed when I skipped dinner. But the moment Julia needed help, after dropping out of 2 different community colleges, Mom opened a new credit card to get him the latest MacBook. He's turning a new leaf, she said. This time it's different. I had learned to live with that backwards logic. When I succeeded, it was expected. When Julian failed, it was life being unfair. He's 4 years older, but in that house, I was the adult. He had bad days. I had responsibilities. When he quit the warehouse job because the manager had an attitude, Mom rushed to defend him. No one should be treated like that. When he crashed the car, Dad just sighed. These things happen. But when I earned a full scholarship to Oregon State, their only concern was, why not somewhere closer? What if Julian needs the car? When I landed a job at a top-tier consulting firm downtown, Mom frowned. So, who's going to help with errands now? I couldn't remember the last time they said, we're proud of you. Maybe they never did. I was never a daughter. I was a utility, a walking bank account with a quiet voice. I kept telling myself I was helping, that families should have each other's backs. But every time I came home after grinding through 70-hour weeks at the firm, I'd find Julian sprawled out on the living room couch, controller in hand, his feet propped on the coffee table like he owned the place. Mom would be stirring a pot of his favorite soup, humming along to her old records. Dad would be sipping his coffee, launching into the same story for the 100th time, about how his son won an elementary school art contest and showed such promise. I'm not heartless. I cared. I really did. But what I can't do anymore is exist in a world where my consistency is ignored and his chaos is celebrated. I remember once telling Mom I was saving up for a condo. Nothing huge, just something that was mine. She looked up from her tea and said, without missing a beat, "A woman buying a home alone? Aren't you worried people will think no one wants to marry you?" I didn't say anything, but that was the day I stopped hoping they'd ever truly see me. Not because I wasn't successful, but because in their eyes Julian would always matter more. I was the emergency fund, the reliable fallback. And that realization, sharp as it was, became my turning point. 7 months ago, I packed my things and left. No shouting, no scene, just quiet resolve. It started with one message from Mom while I was still at the office. "Nina, the power's out. Your dad forgot the bill again. Can you cover? We'll pay you back." Without hesitation, I sent $132.00. Then came the water bill, the internet, Dad's supplements, all neatly explained, all temporary, until temporary became expected. At first I didn't mind, I earned well. But soon they stopped asking and started assigning. Send Julian $200.00 for a design class. Dad's root canal was expensive. Here's the invoice. Suddenly, I was the bank. And just when I was finally prepping my mortgage application, Dad called. His tone was uneasy. "Nina, we're in a bit of a bind with the house. The bank's threatening foreclosure. We just need a little help, a few weeks' worth." I froze. That house, old and cramped, was still my childhood home, where I once taped up vision boards of the life I wanted, where I once believed they'd be proud of me. Before I ever dreamed of stainless steel countertops and hardwood floors, my dream was just to have a bedroom again. One that wasn't replaced by a sofa bed so Julian could temporarily move back in. "How much do you need?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Around $980.00 a month," they said. "Just for a few months, just until your dad and I get back on our feet." And I agreed. That first transfer went through later that night, right after I canceled the deposit on the downtown apartment I had been saving for over a year. But it wasn't just a few months. It became nearly 2 years. 2 years, over $20,000.00 sent. That didn't even include car insurance, roof repairs, or Julian's birthday gifts, which somehow became family obligations. What hurt the most wasn't the money. It was the expectation, the way they acted like it was normal. No thank yous, no can you manage this, just demands dressed up as needs. Julian still didn't have a job. When I asked about it, Mom just sighed and said, "He's finding his path, Nina. Don't pressure him." Pressure? I was working 60-hour weeks to cover his share, and I was the problem? I started logging every transfer. Date, purpose, amount. Not because I expected repayment, God no. I just needed proof that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't how it was supposed to be. But even when I tried to back away, another message always came. "Dad's meds are overdue. The water heater's acting up again. Julian might need art supplies soon. Can you check in?" So I'd send it. Again. And slowly I stopped checking my own accounts in the morning because seeing the near-empty balance made me feel like I was suffocating. I was living off frozen dumplings and clearance canned goods, skipping haircuts and pushing back dental visits so Julian could have a fully stocked fridge and a leak-free roof for his creative space. Then one night, at a corner store 2 blocks from my apartment, I opened my wallet and couldn't afford a gallon of milk. That was the moment it clicked. I wasn't being strong, I was being drained. I used to believe love meant sacrifice. But now, I knew sacrifice without reciprocation isn't love. It's slow destruction. And the only way to stop drowning was to let go of the ones pulling me under. That Sunday it was drizzling. I had just finished a brutal 10-hour shift. My body ached for a hot shower. Instead, I stopped at the store, grabbed groceries, drove 40 minutes, like I had for 2 years. I walked into the house. I stepped into the kitchen, arms full of groceries, salmon, fresh greens, a few frozen meals. As I set them on the counter, Mom appeared, not with a hug or hello, but with that familiar edge in her voice. "Nina, we need to talk." Before I could even exhale, she folded her arms, her tone already laced with guilt and accusation. "We've talked about this. What you're sending each month, it's no longer enough." I paused, blinking. "Not enough?" Dad stepped in from the living room, his voice slow and grave like he was announcing a natural disaster. "You live alone, you make good money. Meanwhile, we're barely keeping things together here. Don't you think that's a little unfair?" I stared at the two people who raised me, now standing in front of me like I was a resource to be managed, not a daughter to be supported. I kept my voice calm, even though my chest was on fire. "I've paid your mortgage for almost 2 years. I've covered utilities, medical expenses, roof repairs, and you're telling me it's still not enough?" From the couch, Julian stretched and muttered, "It's not like you're hurting. What's wrong with sharing a little?" I turned to face him, locking eyes with the 32-year-old who had never paid a single bill in his life. "Sharing goes both ways, Julian," I said, voice like ice. "You've only ever taken." Mom snapped. "That's enough, Nina. You're being disrespectful." I inhaled deeply. I'd heard that line before, more times than I could count. That phrase had always been her shield, her way to silence me. "I'm disrespectful for pointing out the truth?" I asked, my voice tight, trembling but strong. Mom's jaw clenched, her lips forming that thin line I had grown up learning to read. That look of wounded martyrdom. And then, the dagger. "If it's such a burden, then go, walk out that door. And don't come back." Time froze. She didn't realize how often I'd replayed that sentence in my head. But now I had nothing left to prove. No one stopped me. No one begged me to stay. I looked at them all, at Julian scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened, and I dropped the last bag onto the table. Didn't unpack, didn't fill the fridge. "All right," I said, soft as silk, sharp as glass. "If that's how you feel, I hear you." I turned and walked out. No one followed, no one called my name. Just Julian's voice fading behind me. So dramatic. But I didn't turn back. The rain poured down, soaking my hair, my sleeves, my shoes. But I felt free. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. Not because I had nothing, but because I had finally let them go. And I didn't drive straight back to my tiny apartment. If you've ever had to walk away to find your peace, hit subscribe, because Nina's story isn't over and what she does next will change everything. I pulled into a quiet gas station just off Burnside, the kind with one flickering light and a vending machine that probably hadn't worked in years. I opened my contacts list, scrolled past Mom, Dad, and Julian. My thumb hovered for a moment, then I tapped lock. I sat there in silence. I didn't know what the fallout would be. Couldn't predict the storm that would hit once they realized their personal ATM had gone offline. But there was one thing I finally understood. I wasn't going back. Not because I was angry, not out of spite, but because I had finally learned that kindness without boundaries becomes a blueprint for being used. My new place was on the 3rd floor of a weathered building near the Pearl District. Faded white paint, creaky stairs, and a hallway that always smelled like cedar and old books. But to me, it was sanctuary. No 6 a.m. wake-up calls for doctor appointments. No midnight texts asking for help with the electric bill. No more weekend grocery runs that ended in food no one even bothered to cook. I moved in with 2 suitcases and a thrifted blanket, but the freedom? Priceless. The first few months felt like relearning how to live. Each morning, I made coffee, opened the blinds, and let the Portland light spill in. There was no TV yelling in the background, no passive-aggressive sighs, no one reminding me what I owed them. I spent weekends exploring, reading in coffee shops, and walking through Forest Park. I started an online course on financial planning, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And with no one siphoning off my paycheck, my bank account slowly but surely stabilized. I was finally saving, building, breathing. But that peace? It didn't last. By month 3, it started again. A text from Mom. Nina, your dad got a letter from the bank. Something serious. Please call. I set the phone down without replying, because I knew something serious was code for, we need money. A few days later, Dad called. We really need to talk. The house is in trouble. I didn't pick up. Then came the wave. Daily calls, texts, voicemails. First polite, then pleading, then bitter. Are you really abandoning your family? Julian left a message. This isn't a game. Everyone's struggling. I blocked his number. I changed my work line. But no matter what I did, I couldn't stop what came next. I tried to stop myself from reading the messages, but sometimes they were too long to ignore. Paragraphs of accusations, claiming I'd changed, that I'd become distant, cold, heartless. But I wasn't cold. I was healing. Then one Monday afternoon, as I was walking out of a client meeting downtown, my phone buzzed again. It was Julian. I didn't answer. But this time his voicemail wasn't desperate. It was bitter. What do you think you're doing? Feeling proud of yourself? You don't get to walk away from your family just because life got easier. If Mom and Dad lose the house, that's on you. I stood frozen in the parking lot, the voicemail echoing in my ears. I listened to it again, and again, and for a second, I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or laugh. After years of skipped meals, after quietly funneling over $20,000, 0 cents into their bills, after never once hearing a genuine thank you, this blame was what I got? I pulled out my phone and started typing. I've paid my part and yours for years. If things fall apart now, maybe everyone should ask who never did anything. But I deleted it. Because I knew better. Words wouldn't change anything. To them, I was never really a daughter, never a sister. I was the solution. And when the solution stopped working, all they had left was someone to blame. I slipped my phone into my coat pocket and continued walking through the golden glow of the Portland sidewalk. Autumn leaves rustled around my ankles. For the first time in a while, I felt lighter. Later that evening, I stepped out of another meeting and checked my phone. A message from Dad. Nina, why haven't you paid the mortgage this month? The bank's pressing us now. I stopped mid-step in the hallway. My hands went cold. I hadn't sent them a dime in nearly 6 months. I had made it clear. No more money. But the way he phrased it, pressing us now, chilled me, like he truly believed I had still been covering it all this time. Or worse, like he told the bank that I was. Something didn't sit right. That night, I brewed a cup of mint tea, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. I logged into the old joint bank account, the one they had once insisted I use to make things easier. I had never checked it before. I had trusted them. Why wouldn't I? I scrolled through the transaction history, line by line. Every payment I had made was right there. Documented, time-stamped, precise. But the last mortgage payment? It was dated 8 months ago, a full 2 months before I stopped sending money. And right below it, a red alert. Mortgage status, delinquent, 3 months past due. Account overdue, 8 months. Outstanding balance, $6,480, 0 cents. Status, at risk of foreclosure. I pressed a hand over my mouth, trying to calm the quick, sharp rhythm of my breathing. What did this mean? I had kept sending money, on time, every month, for 3 full months after that final payment. But the bank hadn't received a single dollar since then? I opened my personal banking app, scrolled back. There it was. Nearly $3,000, 0 cents, sent after that last mortgage payment. They received it, I had proof. But it hadn't gone to the house. No explanation, no warning, just silence. The chill that moved through me wasn't just disappointment. It was something deeper, colder. It was betrayal. The kind that grabs you by the spine and reminds you how naive trust can be. I didn't pick up the phone that night. I needed answers, not excuses. The next morning, I called the bank again, this time not as a dutiful daughter but as someone trying to confirm the full scope of damage. I explained calmly that I had previously helped manage payments and was concerned my parents hadn't been honest about the mortgage. After verifying my identity, The woman on the line gently confirmed what I already feared. There hasn't been a full payment since January, she said. The account's now with special collections. I thanked her and hung up, my fingers trembling. No more doubt, no more hoping there was some mistake. I had sent money, thousands. And it hadn't gone to the house. Where had it gone? I didn't know, but it wasn't used for what they'd begged me for. That night I left every light on. I couldn't sleep. I laid there, stiff on the couch, staring up at the ceiling as if answers might be written in the plaster. One question looped in my head like a ticking clock. How long had they been lying to me? Mom's familiar phrases came rushing back. It's only temporary, sweetheart. If it weren't for you, we'd starve. Your dad's so worried. Please just help us through this. And then I remembered Julian's face when I left that day. Not regret. Not sadness. Just fear. Fear that the money was leaving with me. I typed a message to Dad. I just spoke to the bank. They said the mortgage is 8 months overdue. I kept sending money. So what happened? No reply. 15 minutes later, the phone rang. Dad. I didn't answer. Not yet. The ringtone echoed like a ghost from a house I no longer lived in, a family I no longer recognized. At 10 p.m., the third call came. My hands were cold. My heart was burning. I knew if I answered, there'd be no turning back. But I was ready. I pressed answer. Nina, it's Dad. His voice was low, tight. So, I guess you found out about the bank. I kept my voice steady. I didn't just find out, I confirmed it. The mortgage is 8 months behind, and I kept sending money. So where did it go? There was a pause, then a sigh, long and tired, like it might cover the truth. I know you're angry, but it's not what you think. I gave a bitter half smile, even though no one could see it. Not what I think. I sent money for the house. The house didn't get paid for. What part of that am I misunderstanding? That's when Mom's voice suddenly cut in, sharp and high-pitched as ever. Nina, don't you dare speak to your father like that, she snapped. You don't understand what we've been going through. Everything's been falling apart since you left. I narrowed my eyes, standing in the middle of my living room. Since I walked away, or since I stopped paying for everyone else to live comfortably? You? Don't speak to me like that, she barked back. I have done everything for this family. Julian lost his job. Your father's back is a mess. The house needs work. And you just turned your back on us. No, Mom, I said quietly but firmly. I turned my back after you drained every last dollar from me and still had the nerve to say it wasn't enough. I'm not obligated to fund your poor decisions. There was silence, just the faint hum of the call still open. Then came the voice I dreaded most. Julian, sliding in without invitation. You're being dramatic, he said flatly. They just need a little help, and you're acting like the whole world owes you something. I laughed low, cold. The world doesn't, but this house, it definitely owes me. You're selfish, he hissed. No, I said, ice threading through every word. Before I was just stupid. Dad came back on. His voice was softer now, almost cracked. We messed up, okay? But you're all we've got. We'll pay you back, I promise. I exhaled a dry, humorless breath. How many times have you promised that? Silence again. Then, barely above a whisper. If you don't help, we could lose the house. We're about to lose everything. And finally, I felt it. Not guilt. Not panic. Just clarity. Because for once, I knew I wasn't the one losing anything. I tightened my grip on the phone. My chest ached, but my voice stayed steady. Then lose it, I said, because it's not my responsibility anymore. Nina, you can't, Dad started. Can't what? I snapped. Can't walk away after being pushed past every limit? I didn't wait for him to finish. I carried this family for nearly a decade while Julian sat around burning through cash and judging me for working. And now, the second I say no, I'm the heartless one? In the background, I heard Mom's sobs again. Julian whispered something I couldn't make out, probably feeding her another reason why I was the villain. Dad's voice cracked with pleading, but I didn't really hear them anymore. Their words echoed like empty hallway ghosts, familiar, fading. I took a breath, one that felt like it came from somewhere deep and long forgotten. I'm done helping, I said, not because I'm cruel, but because I've done more than enough. You all need to learn how to live without me. That's the only thing I'm leaving behind. And I hung up, not in anger, but in peace. After that final call, I turned off my phone and left it untouched on the kitchen table for 3 days. No texts, no voicemails, no guilt-laced pleas, just silence. And I had never known silence to feel so sacred. The next morning, I rose early, brewed coffee, and stepped onto my little balcony. The city glowed beneath a golden Portland sunrise. My apartment wasn't much. The ceiling was low, the wood floors creaked with every step, but it was mine. No knocks on the door asking for gas money, no guilt-tripping calls, no one blaming me for choosing my own life. Freedom wasn't loud like I expected. It was soft, gentle, like the first inhale after surfacing from deep water. But even silence can stir doubt. In the quiet hours after dark, I sometimes wondered, did I go too far? I cut contact. I let the house teeter on foreclosure. I left the people who once raised me to deal with their own chaos. I had always been their foundation. Now I was the one who walked away. Was I too harsh? I finally opened my voicemail, the one I'd been avoiding. Mom, you'll regret this. That house means everything to me. Dad, we're out of options. If you don't help, it's over. Julian, you're letting us sink just because of your pride. I listened to each one. Didn't skip a second. But this time, I didn't cry. I just felt tired, exhausted. They always knew how to make me doubt myself, not with violence, but with guilt. You are the pride of this family. We'd be lost without you. But that pride, that love, it never sounded like thank you. It wasn't pride they held onto, it was a shield, one they used to cover their mistakes. Every time they didn't want to take responsibility, they'd throw out the same lines. You're the strong one, you always come through. I thought about the nights I stayed up past midnight crunching numbers for clients, only to wake up to Julian sneering that I didn't know how to live in the moment. I remembered canceling the one vacation I had planned all year because Mom texted me that they were short on rent again. And I'll never forget the look on her face when I finally told her I was tired. Not sympathy, not concern, just that quiet, icy disappointment, like I'd failed her for having needs of my own. I walked into my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and ran my fingers across the fraying edge of an old quilt from college. And the question returned, what if they really do lose the house? What if one day I get a call saying they have nowhere to go? Would I feel guilty? I'm the reason they stayed afloat for almost 10 years. That doesn't just disappear because I stopped helping 6 months ago. But guilt? Guilt doesn't need facts. It just creeps in, quiet and sharp. Maybe I wasn't the perfect daughter. Maybe I was too firm. But if I hadn't drawn the line, I'd be sitting here with an empty wallet and a hollow heart. I'm not telling this story for applause. I'm not asking anyone to say I was right. I just want to understand. To know if anyone else has felt like this, shouldering a family's entire weight, being called ungrateful for saying no once. Has anyone else been labeled cold for finally choosing peace? And if you're still here, I genuinely want to ask, did I do the right thing? I chose to live for myself, but is there a cost I haven't seen yet? I don't know. But maybe you do. Maybe your message, your story, your honesty can remind me I'm not the only one. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Thank you for sitting with my story. I never thought I'd have to choose between loyalty and peace, between being the backbone of my family and finally standing up for myself. But I did. And I'm still learning how to live with that choice. So now I turn to you. Not for validation, but for connection. Have you ever had to walk away from the people you thought would always be there? Have you ever been called cold just for setting boundaries? Please share your thoughts below, not just for me, but for anyone else reading who may be quietly carrying the same weight. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? What advice would you give to someone torn between love and self-preservation? And, if you believe in the power of reclaiming your worth, hit that subscribe button, because this journey is far from over.